good Wednesday morning. Welcome to GBN. I'm sorry, your host today. We have with us Mr. Brian Brady, who is with Tax Resolution Services, and he is joining us live today. We are actually on site, on remote, our first remote show, but we have some other obligations today. We are in Chris Medeiros' office of Edward Jones down in Garden City. So we're happy to be here for that. And we're going to have some great questions. If you guys are looking, I do want you to do me a favor and come make sure that you go to our StreamYard.com/Facebook to accept the terms there so that Facebook will share your information so that you can put comments on the air and we know who they're coming from. But if you have any comments throughout the show, please make sure that your comments are low. And let me see here. Of course, I'm doing the show today, so you guys have to bear with me a little bit. But look here, we have Pat Horton is joining us today, and she says, good morning, Todd and Brian. Good morning. She says she can't see us. I don't know why there, but you should be able to see us. Skylar saying we can't see us. Oh, that's interesting. Because we can see us. I don't know why that would be the case, but Skylar, let us know. Can you still see us or not? Oh, nope. Lori says we can see you now. Oh, Skylar says we're visible. So, okay, we were playing a magic show on you. Back in the day, Brian used to be a just picking. So that's cool. I do have one that's coming up that says I can see you. That's a Facebook user. Make sure you go to that StreamYard.com/Facebook and accept those terms so that we can see who you are here. So anyway, whoops. I see Skylar had it. Guys, we'll get this right here eventually, I promise you. But had a thing up from Skylar there. Get rid of that part. Get rid of that one. They're popping up everywhere. The live shows, right? All right. Anyway, Brian, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We'll have some fun stuff here, so we'll see what happens. But tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your family, and that kind of thing.
Well, I'm originally from New York City. I moved down here in 1988. My wife, Mary, and I, we have 6 children, 5 boys and a girl, and we have 20 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
And we have 9 dogs.
9 dogs?
9 dogs. All little ones. All little ones.
Ooh-wee.
Yep. And we're real dog lovers. And
you better be dog lovers if you have 9 of them.
We're the wacky people that live next door. So it's nice to know.
I love it. Now you can see us, Terry Ann and also Terry Bunton. Guys, thanks for joining us. Oh, Pat says we look like robots. So yeah. We're practicing a new dance. So Brian, tell us about Tax Resolution Services and how it came to be and that kind of stuff.
Well, I've been in the CPA business for over 40 years. And basically, during the years of practice, I discovered a lot of people were having issues related to their taxes. And they did not know where to go. And if any of you have had the experience of trying to contact the Internal Revenue Service, or South Carolina Department of Revenue, or any revenue, you probably realize that being on hold, and then all of a sudden the phone rings. Oh, thank God, they're going to get through. You pick up the phone, next thing they hang up. That's what's called a courtesy disconnect. And that's when you pick up the old days, you pick up the phone and across the room. Now you just use your mobile phone and just say something ugly into it. It's something where I felt it was a mission of mine, almost a vocation to help people, because being a CPA, the operative word is public, and the goal of the profession is primarily to assist the public as best we can to handle all of the variety of complex quagmires that individuals can get into. And dealing with any kind of large government bureaucracy like the IRS or the revenue departments is extremely frustrating for people because they just don't know where to go. They will receive letters, they don't know what to do. And the worst thing they can do is try to contact them themselves, because then it's like going into court without an attorney. You really need to know the rules of the game and how to, move forward, and what each party is looking for. And so it's really important, and it's extremely emotional situation, because basically you're filled with anxiety. You don't know what to do, as I said before, and you don't know where to turn. Many of my colleagues, and I'm not saying anything negative about my colleagues, but many of my colleagues, CPA colleagues, don't do tax controversy resolution. They can help in some ways, but I have from my fellow CPAs and attorneys and stuff like this. Nobody deal with this. And I've gotten to a point in my career where I can pick the phone, and people at the IRS and state revenue, they know me. So I can talk to them. No, I'm not trying to blow sunshine up their skirts. And we can resolve issues very, very matter-of-factly based on certain qualifications. And that's what tax resolution came into play. And now you've probably seen many of the national firms, they are very, I never want to say anything bad about anybody, but a lot of them just really push people and get huge fees up front and really don't resolve the problem. And they're in California and or in a different place. I set up my firm here primarily to deal with local people. I deal with people, in the close states in Georgia and North Carolina and South Carolina and stuff, but primarily just local, because it's very important for people to be able to come and see me and get a feel for who I am, and they feel comfortable with me, because it's the chemistry has to be there. I can't help everybody. The ones I can help, I want them to feel comfortable with me, know that they're in the right hands, and that, we can get stuff done. And that's pretty much why I open tax resolution services.
Well, that's awesome. So you work with businesses and individuals, right?
Yes, I do. I do a lot.
All right. So you handle a lot of tax related issues, as we know, but I want to discuss some of those a little bit.
Sure.
Maybe you can give us a little bit of examples of how recently you've helped somebody and what they were facing, whatever that may be.
Sure.
Because we're going to get into a little bit more about some of the stuff too, like non-filed returns,
Sure.
Incorrect filed returns, and you're having to go back and fix them, things like that. So,
well, an older lady had an issue where one of her 1099s that she received as basically a retirement account was miscoded by the bank when she received it. And it resulted in her having to pay, several thousands of additional dollars. And she is one of these real activist type. She's full of vim and vigor. This lady. She's 78 years old and nothing's going.
Little firecracker.
Oh, she's a firecracker. So she went and, represented herself and ended up filing a petition for the tax court. So I get a call from the general counsel's office saying, we need to move forward with this. I said, I've already solved the problem. I won't say his name, but I've been on the phone with the audit reporting section. I've already solved that problem. What are we going to do? There's nothing to sue about. So that's now in the process of being fixed. And I had another guy in the construction business down in Edisto Beach. This fellow owed about $340,000 of payroll taxes.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's a bad thing, okay? Because you're subject to what's called a trust fund recovery, which is not a good thing, okay? And then I had another guy in the landscape business. He didn't file his tax returns for 5 years. So we had to do a complete analysis of his business, basically write up all of his accounting records, prepare the returns, get it in. Now I'm in the process of attempting to get him in an installment agreement. So these are all things that I do for people. And they can't do it themselves. If they had to spend time doing it, they wouldn't be able to pay the bill. So,
right. So how long, speaking of that, how long is the longest time of someone has not filed taxes that
Well,
you?
I had a fella come in. I can't let I've had the longest fella I had was 20 years.
He had not filed taxes in 20 years.
In 20 years. And I said, and he was a businessman, a
Yeah.
local businessman.
Yeah.
I said, how in God's name didn't you file tax returns for 20 years? And he sat there and he just shrugged his shoulders and he just was under the radar. And then I had another attorney, who was famous for this, by the way, was disbarred for a couple of reasons, and he hadn't filed for 10 years. But basically, the rule from the general counsel's office is if you don't file, they only usually go back for 6 years, okay? Unless there's fraud or some sort of criminal fraud involved. So I tell people, don't freak out if you haven't paid in a long time. 6 years is pretty much the extent of where they're going to go. Let's just get that taken care of, and then we'll run it from there.
Interesting stuff. Actually, my son's on here watching today. Cool is that? He said, do you suggest filing your taxes as a business owner each year, or go a few years and then file them? Obviously, we don't want to go a few years, but some people do file quarterly, and some file annually.
No, everybody files their tax returns annually.
Okay.
What he might be referring to is his estimated tax payments.
Gotcha.
That he has to pay quarterly.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's a different, and it's very confusing for people because if they're not in the tax world, they think, well, a tax return is a tax return. That's not the case. You have payroll tax returns and then you have income tax returns. And even on a Form 1040, you're just not paying income taxes. There's all kinds of taxes that are paid. You got self-employment tax, you got net investment tax credit. There's all kinds of stuff that are paid for on a 1040. And that's why it's always best, here's the plug for the CPA services, to have a professional handle it, because it's just getting worse and worse, the complexity of the tax code. Anytime you hear these guys talk about simplicity, run for the door, because you know they're not going to make it simple.
And it's kind of crazy. Skylar is agreeing that 20 years is insane. I agree with you, Tyler. And then we have a gentleman here that you may know that's watching. Whoops, let me get it up here. There it is. A guy named Tommy Brady.
Tommy Brady.
He says, hey, that's my father. And he says he's got 2 sons watching. Thanks for joining us, Tommy. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And let's see who else we got in here. Walter Melson, he says, hello, good morning, everybody. Hi, Walter. I appreciate you joining us this morning. So let's talk about tax liens and tax levies and some examples of those and maybe even what the difference is.
Sure. Well, everyone does get confused about liens and levies. But let me kind of put it in very straightforward terms. When you file a tax return, when you assess, when you create, if you owe money, you create what's called an assessment. The government already has what they call a silent lien against you on all of your property, everything that you own. Now, they don't perfect the lien, which means that they will file it at the county courthouse, or if you're a business with the Secretary of State's office. First of all, it normally has to be over $10,000 before they'll file a lien. But that is different. That's basically what it is. Okay, you have access to your when assets and stuff like that, paying them. A levy is when a revenue officer has basically filed a lien against you and then will also go after your property. They actually seize your property in a levy. You will get, there's a variety of notices that you would get, okay? And it's, I don't want to go through the numbers, but it's CP 501, 503, 504, then LT 58, I think it is, where you will have a notice of deficiency, statutory notice of deficiency, or SNOD. They put that through. Next thing you know, you'll get, that's a 90-day letter. After 90 days, they can begin levy action. At which point in time, then you need to resolve the issue somehow by some sort of alternative payment arrangement. That might be an offer and compromise. It might be a partial pay installment agreement. It might be an installment agreement. It might be that you just write them a check and all is well. It all depends. And that's what we do here at Tax Resolution Services. I will analyze the situation for you and then decide. Oh, no, I won't decide. The client will decide what the best course of action is depending on their economic resources.
So the IRS is going to try to help you to resolve it unless they find fraud right away.
Yeah,
they're going to try to help you resolve it before they just come and put handcuffs on you and take you to jail.
The less they don't take it, they don't take you to jail unless it's a criminal matter.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And there aren't a great deal of criminal cases. Everybody gets very fearful that they're going to go, put the bracelets on them and take them out. That doesn't happen that often. I think in most of the time, in any 1 year, there might be 2,500 criminal cases.
Oh, wow.
But if you have the IRS CID, which is the Criminal Investigation Division, looking at you, you have to realize that they have about a 95% success rate. So they're not going to look at you unless they got you.
Right.
Okay. So it's best to resolve the issue as soon as possible. And once a case, I notice sometimes when I'm doing my investigation that if there is the slightest hint that CID might be involved, I immediately remove myself from the case, get legal counsel, because I am not I don't have client, attorney-client privilege. That's only for attorneys.
Right.
Okay. So you have to be very careful. And I might end up being the prime witness for the government.
Right. Sure.
So I tell people, please, not another word. And we get an attorney, and I get what's called a Covell letter from the attorney that now I'm working under the attorney-client privilege through the attorney. And then it's not a problem. They can't find my information through discovery. And we've had to do that several times.
Wow. Well, hey, guys, I tell you what, stick with us. We're going to come back right after the break, and we're going to talk about audits, payroll, and bankruptcy. I'm sure those are three interesting things. So, guys, I appreciate it. Make sure you stay with us, and we will be back right after these messages. Stick around. It's GBN Live.
Hi, I'm Justice Ann. I've been a canine liaison at Grand Strand Law Group for, 30 years? What's that? You don't believe me? I meant 30 dog years, of course. First rule of lawyering, read the fine print. Anywho, my humans at Grand Strand Law Group have a combined 20 years experience. I know, not as much as me, but that's in people years. So yeah, still pretty impressive. Real estate, estate planning, or probate, you need GSLG.
Grand Strand Law Group. Trust us, we have a dog.
Great Business Networking grew out of the idea that by creating lasting friendships within the community, we can make the community even better.
I was looking to network with professionals and to be able to refer my clients to somebody that I trust.
Well, it's really important to trust the members of the group because we really generate quality referrals, and to know somebody, be friends with them, and get that the qualified referral is the key to success.
It is networking, but it doesn't feel like networking, and that is important to me. I come to the meetings, I have fun, I make great connections, and I help grow my business.
GBN, these are some of the best professionals in the market, and having that resource available to me, that's priceless.
Well, GBN is a network of business professionals that build long-lasting friendships that will not only grow my business, will grow yours as well. That's what referral marketing is all about.
GBN really is the most important marketing for your business. Check us out today. All right, guys, welcome back to GBN Live. I'm Todd Gartner, your host today, and we have with us Mr. Brian Brady with Tax Resolution Services, and we greatly appreciate you guys being here today. If you have any other questions, just make sure you get them into the comments, and we'll get those on air if we can. Brian, I see you offer tax audits. you hear about those. My HOA just went through a massive one. But tell us a little bit about those and what you're looking for in the audit, because a lot of people think that you're trying to find if there's any criminal misdoings or anything like that when you're auditing for a big company, but that's not always the case.
Well, no, basically the IRS, okay, handles the audit. They're the ones who are going to be sending you the love letter. Okay. And basically there are three types of audits that the IRS and the state revenue department, have. They have what's called a letter audit, which surprisingly, they just write you a letter and say, we need a little bit more information on this particular issue, or it might be a couple of issues. Then you have
and you probably want to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you probably don't want to only answer that, don't provide any information you don't need to.
You never give more information than they ask for.
Right.
Okay? The second one would be a letter, actually what's called an in-office visit, where you would actually physically go into the office, meet a revenue agent, not a revenue officer, but a revenue agent, which is a higher level of a individual at IRS. They're very well trained, and they are the ones who actually do the audits. And that's really kind of intimidating to people. But the thing is, right now with COVID being what it is, they're not doing a lot of in-office audits because pretty much all of the RAs, those are the revenue agents, are working remotely. So it's difficult for them to be doing that. Now, the third way that they go and do audits is an in-business, or they come directly to you, which is really bad, because then they come in and they basically give you a proctology exam, going through all of your records, and they can be there. They can be there for a week, they can be there for a month. Normally they're there for 2 or 3 days and leave. But you need to be able to protect yourself by having the correct representation. You do not want to take a knife to a gunfight. That's never a good idea. So you have to make sure that you have the right representation to liaise between yourself and the revenue agent. You don't want to speak to them. You're not required to speak to them unless you get what's called an administrative summons, at which point in time, then you will need to go and chit chat with them, but you still can have representation. That's part of the basically the IRS rules under the Internal Revenue Manual. You're entitled to representation, and that's the best way to go. As I said, never go in and talk to folks without representation, whether it be in a legal sense, whether you need an attorney. I know listen, professionals are not inexpensive. We understand this, but they're going to be a whole lot cheaper than what the result will be if you try to handle it yourself. So just, bite the bullet, deal with it, and get it over with. That's the best way to do it. You're not going to, when you have a medical issue, you don't go up and down the hospital floor asking for the most inexpensive doctor. What do you want? You want the best. And that's what you want. And that's what we need to have right now. You need to make sure you have the best representation that you can get.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about payroll taxes. I know that if somebody has an issue with those, that they create some issues that, maybe you're having to go way back to fix, because those are going to have to be paid one way or the other. So how does that work? If somebody has payroll tax issues, what's the process in finding out what they need to do and how you can help them?
Well, with any kind of investigation needs to be, and that's one of the things in what I do in terms of the engagement that we prepare. It's basically a 3-tiered process. Basically, you have the investigative phase, then you have the compliance phase, then you have the alternative resolution phase. It doesn't matter if it's income taxes or payroll taxes or state taxes. Those 3 components are always there. We need to find out the facts. Remember Sergeant Friday?
Yeah, that's right.
Just the facts, man. That's what we need
Just
to do.
the fact.
We're dating ourselves. But
Yeah, that's right.
That's okay. With payroll taxes, remember, the issue with payroll taxes is they are trust fund taxes. Now, what does that mean? That means you've taken money out of your employees' pay to hold for remittance to the government. So it's not the employee's money, it's not the employer's money, it's the government's money. And if you do not remit that to them, they get extremely upset to the point where you could be charged criminally for it. Or if they go on a civil direction, you can be hit with what's called a trust fund recovery penalty, which is equal to, I'll sit down for this one, 100% of the amount of tax that you owed plus interest and penalties.
Wow.
That's a bad thing.
Don't do that, people.
That's a very bad thing. And the thing is, the government always tries to get what they call a responsible party. And a responsible party is someone who has control over the basically writing the disbursement of financial resources, checks. Now that can be a bookkeeper, it can be the owner. And so a lot of the time, the IRS will just corral a whole bunch of people and say, not only were you responsible, but you were willful. And that is where the trust fund recovery penalty can be assessed. And that's where you really need to have professional guidance, because this could turn into a criminal matter if the numbers are large enough. Many people, and if you want, you can send me an email. I'll send you my newsletter. A lot of people, pretty much every time in my newsletter, are getting nailed for this particular thing. So it's very important that you get professional help if you are back in payroll taxes. And they can go back quite a ways, because they don't let it go too far, because it's the government's money. So they're really on top of this. And that's one of their big audit goals right now, is to really nail down, with the resources that they have, this past payroll tax amount of money that people owe.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about bankruptcy. I know everybody hates that, but I've heard in the past there's actually times where it's more beneficial for a business to file bankruptcy if for certain reasons. And that may be that they just need to reorganize. There's several different levels of bankruptcy too. You can file Chapter 7 and 11, 13, 11. Yeah.
And there's a new one called Chapter 5. Now, bankruptcy is, remember, first and foremost, bankruptcy is a legal issue. If you file bankruptcy, you must have an attorney. I help attorneys with bankruptcy cases because taxes can be discharged in bankruptcy if they're older than 3 years old. So I have to do the analysis and see how much is owed and whether or not the particular taxes that are owed are dischargeable in bankruptcy. Then I would work with the attorney to say, okay, these years are now subject to being discharged. So let's put that into the dischargeable bankruptcy estate and see whether or not we can get them.
Payroll taxes is not one of those, though.
No, that's
Right.
one of the things that is very, very
Sure.
important. Payroll taxes. The other thing that's really big is sales taxes. Sales taxes are also trust funds, because remember, when you make a sale, guess what you do? You collect sales taxes. And when you do, whose money is that? It's the state of South Carolina. And if you think the IRS is mean, you haven't seen anything till you see the South Carolina Revenue Department when it comes to sales taxes. They will shut your business down in a heartbeat. You need to really resolve these issues quickly, because remember, the folks at SCDOR are extremely competent, and they're right here, okay? They can come right to your place. Right now in the Myrtle Beach area, say, for instance, there's only one, revenue officer, and he's, we try to find him. He's behind a mountain of paper most of the time.
Right.
So, but the state, they have people, and believe me, they're right on top of this. So make sure you pay those sales taxes, because they're not dischargeable in bankruptcy either.
Gotcha. Well, going back to the payroll taxes, let's say you're a 17-year-old person. You're obviously single. You don't have any, what's the word I'm looking for?
Employees.
Well, not employees, but dependents. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
So you don't have any dependents. I've heard different stories. You claim 0 on your taxes. You claim 1 on your taxes. Is there a rule of thumb there? And if there is, what would be beneficial?
Let me tell you the usual 100% useless CPA answer. It depends. Okay? It depends. In some ways, it depends on how much the 17-year-old's making.
Right.
And whether or not he's working in a legitimate job, whether or not he's selling narcotics. These are things that you need to really ask. most 17-year-olds are probably making minimum wage.
Yeah.
And for the best thing they can do is when they're filing, the form that they file with the employer is a W-4. They can just put down zero exemptions because they don't have any. And that'll make sure that the withholding is a little bit higher than it would normally be. The problem is the withholding tables, if you look at them now, and it's very exciting to read withholding tables.
Maybe for you, not for me.
Well, it's not for me either. You'll see that if the income is low enough, you're not going to pay any withholding taxes anyway. What you're going to end up paying is FICA taxes,
right?
Social Security and Medicare taxes. That is statutory. Yeah, you're always going to pay that, and that's going to be at 7.65% of your gross pay. But you may not be paying any withholding taxes, and that's true also of South Carolina. You may not be paying. It all depends on how much money you're making.
Yeah,
and that and you can go to the IRS.gov website and plug your numbers in. And it'll tell you. I mean, it's not rocket science. You can do that all by yourself. It's very easy to do.
Yeah. Well, hey, Brian, I appreciate it. Stick around with us for just a second. I do want to bring up next week's guest. We will have Jen Lindblad, who is a business consultant. She is from our Surfside chapter, and she's going to be joining us next week here on GBN Live. But Brian, before we go, tell us a little bit about what referral networking means to you, and specifically being a member of GBN.
Well, I've really just joined GBN
a couple months ago.
In March. My buddy Tom Winslow kind of corralled me one day and said, "Do you want to join a networking thing?" And I said, I'm not really, I have plenty of business. I don't usually need to network, but it's nice just to get out and meet people. And he got me into the Pawleys Island chapter. And the folks down there are just wonderful. Everybody I've met has been thoroughly professional, just really nice folks. We meet at Tom's office down in Pawleys Island.
Thursday mornings at 7:30.
Yeah, it's great. And one of the young ladies brings breakfast. It's very nice.
Oh, there you go.
And Tom has coffee machines there, which is great. And we really have an opportunity to discuss things. Some real estate people, brokerage people, insurance people, investment advisor folks. We have a new fella that's in a handyman, so he's also able to help us. We have representatives from Anderson Insurance Company who work upstairs in Tom's office. It's just a real nice group of people. And we have a mortgage broker, Patty Boy, and that's, I shouldn't call him. That's what I call my son, my oldest boy. So, and he's a big guy like me, and he's a very, very bright guy, very helpful to everybody. We got Mel, who is a real estate agent and into everything and always on the go.
Yeah.
We have Seifi, who's with Anderson, and then we have Caitlin, who's with Aflac. We have a lot of them, and we got Steve, who's with LPL. We've got a lot of good folks, and we're trying to get the group a little bit larger. And I've already gotten a couple of referrals from the folks, and my primary and GBN is it's not one of these I don't want to be pejorative, but one of these money grubbing things like somebody else might be. We don't want to mention their names, but it's $195 a year plus a $50 initiation fee. It's really not, and you get a chance to meet people. They have nice little gatherings. We had one, last week? We had one over
Yes,
at that.
yes.
Yeah. It was really very nice. You get a chance to meet people. And because I do quite a bit of advertising on the radio. I advertise on WTKN with Liz Calloway and Nick Summers and the entire program there. And we're also on Easy Listening. And I've gotten a lot of business from that. And I'm hoping that, with GBN and the advertising that, the business will continue to grow and I can continue to help people in the community the way I want to. Many people ask me, well, when are you going to retire? And, I'm going to be 69 years old this year. I have no intention of retiring at all. I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
I'm the same way.
I love what I do. I love meeting people. I love helping people. And it's really, it's just not a job to me. It's a vocation. It's a passion that I have to go and continually learn new things, keep sharp, keeping up on things, and represent people the way they need to be represented.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you want to reach out to Brian, or if you have anybody that needs any assistance with their taxes, you can contact him at 843-668-4340. That's 843-668-4340. Or you can visit his website for a lot of more information. There's a lot of great stuff on there at taxresolutionservicesllc.com. taxresolutionservicesllc.com. And let me get back over to here right quick. And Brian, we greatly appreciate you being here with us. And
My pleasure.
We had a good time. I learned a lot of information. So, guys, if you keep it in mind, if it's Wednesday, it's GBN Live, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.